Larry Goddard, a name you should know, creator of Klassi-js, where tests smoothly flow. Test automation architect, a mentor, a guide. In the realm of testing, he takes it in stride. Speaker and finalist, awards in his sight. For BTA and LDA, he's the testing knight. Today's episode is a gem, a real treat. With Larry's insight, you're in for a seat. From Klassi-js, secrets to mentorship gold, this episode's one you'll forever hold. Larry, welcome to the Test Automation Experience. Thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Where are you joining us from?
I'm in London at the moment. I'm in good old London.
Yeah, awesome. And you were telling me how originally you're from the Caribbean, right?
Yeah, the best place in the world to live, Trinidad and Tobago. You know,
Awesome.
I have to say this. You know, it's like moving from the furnace into the deep freeze. You know, moving from the good old beaches to the cold places, stuff like that. You know, yeah.
I can't imagine doing that ever again. I made the opposite move of you. I used to live in the Washington D.C., Maryland, Virginia area of United States, where we had the cold, we had the snow, we had to wake up at 6 a.m. to shovel off the car, and we moved to Florida to escape all of that.
Awesome.
So
yeah. I can understand that. Now, you see, definitely have no qualms with doing that. And I think one of these days, next time I talk to me, well, you never know. A couple of years might talk to me and say, "Where are you?" And I'll say, "In Trinidad."
Yeah, awesome. Larry, I got a few rapid fire questions for you. You ready?
Yep, go.
All right. What's the best advice that you have for someone doing test automation?
Learn, and always keep your eyes on the prize and continue learning as you go along. That's advice I'll give to anybody who will come into automation.
Awesome. How do you see the future of test automation evolving?
That in itself is a big question, but on a short answer is you need to look at all the new stuff, especially AI, because that is going to push a lot of things into this whole test automation space, especially the whole generative bit of the AI thing, where you can allow it to do bits and pieces for you. So yeah, it's something that you have to pay attention to, and going forward, it won't kill it, but it will enhance it even further.
Very cool. And the last one, what's the biggest mistake people make in test automation?
From my personal experience, is not actually talking about the requirements that you actually need to test against. You know, that's not problem. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes we all make somewhere along the line of our career.
Yeah, just automating stuff for the sake of automation versus thinking of it as a way to provide value to our company.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I've done way too much of that.
I think we're all guilty of doing that. We're all guilty of that.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So hopefully the people listening to us listen and take some of this advice and do less of it.
I hope so too. I honestly hope so.
Larry, originally you and I got connected through a LinkedIn post that I made because I was thinking about it a lot. There's a question that comes up a lot in our industry where the question is, what is the best programming language for test automation? First of all, that question is flawed in that you can't have a best programming language because it's how do you choose? It's very weird. So what I think people were trying to ask whenever they asked that question is, what is a great programming language to start on? What is the one that might enable me to do test automation easier versus a different choice? And so I was thinking about that, and through my experiences of doing like Java development, C# and JavaScript and TypeScript, I came to a belief that one of the biggest mistakes that people can make and one of the biggest limitations to really great test automation will be choosing a programming language that is different from the application that you are testing. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts on that is like this. I agree with you to a point, and yet at the same time, I tell myself you should choose a language that you could get help easy with. You could get help easy with. So I'm writing something, I'm stuck. I could come up and say, "You being the developer," I could just look across to you and say, "Yeah, Nick, I'm doing this and I'm stuck," and you could just roll your chair across and help me out. That's one of that's one of the things about it. And although I, for myself, like you, dwells into JavaScript and TypeScript and that kind of thing as on a daily basis, I still have the concept of, I don't think you should, to enhance what you said earlier, I don't think you should have what is the best language for. I think it should be what could actually get a job done and what you could get a job done with simply, And in saying that, hence the reason why when we hook up and by the way, just to correct you a little bit, we was hooked up long before that type, that message I had there. I just tell myself, Nick, why is Nick saying that? I just have to say something.
That's true. Yeah, I think that was the first time we interacted through comments.
It was a really interactive per se. And for me, I tell myself, it's like, if you're going to test something, and I being the QA, you being the developer, right, for the scenario, I want to be able to use something that I'm comfortable with, and I could use, and and it's easy for me to control, and yet still at the same time, still be able to get your input if I am stuck with something, right? And yeah, you might say, yeah, but let's shift this paradigm a little bit and say I'm a Java developer, and this is what I'm working on. Why would you want to choose, because you don't know much Java, you want to choose a JavaScript, to think, framework to do it? And my response will be, check one or two things. Point me to one developer in the entire world that doesn't know JavaScript, and I will show you a big issue with my logic. And that is where, it comes from. So like I say, I agree with what you're saying. If the application is in Python, then you should write Python. If it's in Java, you should use Java. If it's in JavaScript, TypeScript type thing, you can use either or. And that's where my whole would say part of the argument comes in terms of what is what and why I choose to do what.
So let me just clarify. You agree with that statement that picking the programming language that your application is coded in makes the most sense for testing. By the way, it's something to mention too. A lot of times, the audience that we're talking to, well, no, I'm not going to say a lot of times. Sometimes the audience that we're talking to are only focused on UI automation, and so I want to say that, I mean, for like unit and integration testing, there's not even a question, right? It's like for unit testing, you choose the language of your, you can't do unit testing otherwise. Same thing with integration testing. So this question, it's funny because it really only comes up in like web-based or black box or
E2E
functional, E2E functional testing, right? And so this is what we're talking about. With other types of testing, it's not even a question. And so you agree, but what you're saying is that it's not as detrimental as I make it out.
That's what I'm saying. It's not detrimental as you make it. Yeah. So for me personally, like I say, for me personally, I'm a JavaScript person, so it doesn't really matter what project it is. The framework, the JavaScript framework I have, that we use and will work on it because it's web-based either way, so it will work. But to say it's detrimental, and that's why I disagree with you on. Yes. If you didn't use the word detrimental, I wouldn't say anything about it. I just like it and let it pass.
Move on.
But is that whole detrimental bit? Because it's not, right? Because it's not, and that's my whole thing. It's not detrimental at all. Because if you let's take a real world thing. Where I work, right? I could say it. I work for Oxford University Press, and we have a lot of applications, and that written in a lot of different languages. And what was going on before, they were using a lot of, let's say, so Python for Python and JavaScript for JavaScript and Java to Java and like that. So you had a lot of different frameworks doing a lot of things. But what was the point was, when you have a team of people doing things, then you end up where Nick is the Java guy, Larry is the JavaScript guy, and Tom is the Python guy. But if Nick gets sick for whatever reason, or Larry gets sick for whatever reason, then you find, oh, we just don't come to work because we decide we're not coming. Then you find, wait a minute, everything had to stop because Nick not there, or Larry not there, or Tom not there. Nobody can do the other languages. Hence the reason why that is where the whole literal concept come into place. It's not. It may be ideal if that is all you do in that particular language. Then no argument whatsoever. Hands on, as people say, hands on heart is the obvious choice. But once you work in a place where there's a lot of different applications running around that you're building things on because a big organization like ours, then you find that is where I think the word common sense should come into play. You want to choose something, you want to choose a language where everybody could deal with it. So Nick didn't come to work today, Larry could pick up Nick's work. Larry didn't come, Nick could do it, or John could do it, because everybody could, know the language. And that is where I disagree with your detrimental bit.
Cool. That makes sense. So let me explain where I come from the detrimental side. I totally agree with you, by the way. I believe that developers should be like T-shaped, actually maybe even M-shaped developers, where we have a broad range of skills and some in-depth skills in a few areas. Like we're really good at a few, and that includes knowing numerous programming languages so that you can do help with front end, back end, and if you have to do Python, figure out some Python and so on. Where I realized how detrimental it is to choose a programming language that is not the same as the application that we're coding. I'll go with just a simple example, just so everyone is like on the same. Like if we're talking about a React-based web application, and this was I figured this out when I transitioned from doing C# and Java to doing JavaScript and TypeScript. I realized the differences. There are so many, but I'll just talk about like a few. For example, if you are trying to test a web application using, let's say, TypeScript, and the application is React, if you want to run a browser-based end-to-end test, you have the code right there, and you can easily interact with the code. If you want to change and create a unique locator for one of your elements, you can just go ahead and do that. Versus if you're outside of the code base, you can't do that. You have to talk to a developer, and you have to even know how to ask for that developer. Okay, that part. What about if you realized that you don't need an end-to-end test and you want to write a component test that's way more efficient, faster, and more stable? Now you can do that as well, because you're using the same programming language. Versus if, for example, you're using Java, you can't. You don't know how to do that. You have to learn those skills. Then we get into like CI/CD part, where that gets even trickier. If you want to build your web app and build it and then test it as the next step, you can do that if you're using like JavaScript or TypeScript. If you're not, you have to figure out how you can deploy your application first, and then trigger another pipeline that's maybe running in Java in order to run against that deployed application, making the process ultimately a lot more clunkier.
Well, I mean, let me interject a little bit with this, with that. Now, like I say, I'll be talking real world, because especially in CI/CD, and especially the way it works and everything, we could use a standard. Let me use the word standard, a standard test framework to test against our application. It doesn't really matter what the application written in, because at the end, you inside the CI/CD, what you do is you call your code out at GitHub. You could call the framework as well. Even if the framework, and I'll go to it like this. Even if the framework is in the same language and is in the same repo as your actual code, you still have to call them, and you have to let them spin up for your thing to work. Now, and you say something about component testing. And that, I mean, for the audience, let's say that our audience at the moment is people who in the know, and by that I mean they're not now starting out. They don't have like just a year kind of thing. They need to know. If I even component testing, and that's where I have to bring WebDriver IO into the conversation, because now you could do your component testing right inside using that whole framework logic. So it could be done in there, and you don't necessarily have to have a specific. And although you say that you may have the clunkiness of it, when you look into a CI/CD, like right now the way, and I could going back to the real world, the way mine is set up, I call my application, I check my application code out, I call the test framework, check the code out, and that's it. It just calls and run the script against the environment. So yes, what you're saying is true, but at the same time, we can't. I don't like the concept of mitigating that it is the end all to mean all, if that makes sense.
I didn't understand that last part. What do you mean mitigating the end all?
Yeah, by that I mean it is not written in stone. Where I don't like the fact that you want to make it sound like it was written in stone, where it is best to use that the best solution for your application would be in its same language, as opposed to using a different language to test against your application. That's what I mean.
I see. Yeah, I think in that area, I'll agree with you, because it's hard to write really anything in stone in tech, because most of the time it depends on the context, right? It's like, yes, you can have a bunch of rules that you have followed your whole career, but then a totally different context and situation will force you to reevaluate what you have been doing. What I do want to say, though, is that picking a technology that is not the same as the application that we're testing, it puts the engineer into a technological and a communication box that's extremely hard and takes a lot of extra effort to overcome. And so that, to me, is an unnecessary waste of resources, time, not being able to communicate with the developers, all because we don't choose to learn a new programming language and stick with something that we're used to doing.
No, I agree with you. And I'll tell you what, that's what I'm saying. I agree with you. But again, to that point, and I'll tell you the point is the last statement you make. The ability for the people to upskill themselves. Yeah, because you find, and I have it, I deal with it on a regular basis as well too. You find, let's say you have people who, when they started off the programming career, they started in Java. So everything that they do from then on, it was Java. And I'll pick a simple example. We have a website and we want to find a locator. And you talk to anybody who career started in Java, and they'll automatically tell you expat. Use expat for your locators, and use expat, and it's the best thing since sliced bread. But at the same time, that might be true. But then over time, things has evolved, right? So now you find you stuck in your ways, and like you're saying, you're stuck in the way Java thing. So now they learn that they finally decided, oh, let me learn JavaScript. They finally decided because they get a new job and they have to use it so they learn it. And now they start to do the same thing, just expat only. And all you have to do, doesn't really matter what it is make 2 simple changes to your UI, and 90% of them test cases are going to fail when you're using expat. I don't know why. Not I don't know why, but the point is, there are a lot of different ways you can find an element. And you could do that using expat, CSS, all the other partial stuff to go with it, and you can even build your own. And again, that comes down to me as an individual, and how far I want to take my career into the whole QA testing bit of it. Because like me, I'm a JavaScript person, but I know some C#, and the good thing is I could read code. If you say, you know what, build me something in C#, I'm screwed, I'm completely screwed. But I can look at the C# code and say, oh, that wouldn't work. And I might be able to correct it why it wouldn't work. If you tell me to write something, I'm lost completely. But and that is for me. So I learned over the years. So I know C#, I know Ruby, I know TypeScript, JavaScript, and I know a little bit. Oh, and I know Python. Yeah? I know Python because my kid going to school, that is what they're teaching them in school. So I learned Python, so I'll be able to help him. And that, I mean, like you say, and like you rightfully said earlier on in the conversation, we don't need to know it all. We just need to know enough to identify what's happening. And do we need help? Do I need to call Nick on this? Or do I need to call John? Because I recognize this piece of code as C# code. Who it is. And once they do that, then despite the fact of what you might say, yes, get the language in the application. I'm saying all of that is good, but you can still get a language outside that you're comfortable with that you could use to do exactly the same thing. But if we don't upskill and we don't look at everything else, we will fail. Even if we operate in the same language that the application written in. Yeah, because you put rules in place, you put a lot of stuff, but it come like ESLint, where you lint in your code for margins and space. I might just decide I don't like that 1-inch thing on your tab. I want to put it 4 because it looks better. It just doesn't. Anytime I run lint on my code, it will just push everything across. So when I see my code, I'll say, "Oh my God, what Nick them do with my code? I don't like it." So, but it's not. Yeah, it is what we like and what it is we want to do, but at the same time, we have to upskill and we have to stay with technology as we go along.
Yeah, totally agree on that. It's tech. You always have to be learning and growing, otherwise you'll become stale.
Yeah,
yeah, Larry, let's continue talking because you've done so much cool stuff. And I, as preparing for the show, I learned about something you created that I've never seen before or heard about it. Klassi-js. What is that? Can you maybe walk us through what it is and even show us some of its cool features that you like?
Okay, I'll walk you through it. What this is, it's just I will say it's just a normal test automation framework. It was born out of a need. A couple of years back, I went to work for a company, and the task was to automate stuff because it was all a lot of manual thing. And I put together this framework that did the job. And then at the time, the framework, it was just really, really good. And what I have done with it over the years is improve on it, because like we say, technology changes, improve on it, chip it apart, rewrite stuff. And so it's a test automation framework that would do, as JavaScript based, by the way, with WebDriver IO in the engine.
I wouldn't have guessed that Klassi-js is JavaScript based.
Yeah, it is.
I thought it's C# based.
Yeah, but we're running WebDriver IO it's under the engine, and instead of you have your whole Jasmines and your Jess and everything, I decided to use Cucumber because at the time that's what I learned. At the time I knew that, so that's what I built it with, and still have it using that. So that's what it is. So it does as it stands right now, and I think you wouldn't hear about it much unless you actually know and follow me in certain things. Then you will know about it. Although it's open source, because it's used in-house in Oxford University Press and Cambridge Assessment Publishing. It's in-house, and so a lot of people across the world uses it for it because we have the press of I think like over 200 and something just QAs alone, because worldwide we're talking, and that's the framework of choice across the board. And because I have this cool job, and I have to say I have this cool job as the test automation architect, it's my duty to do all the R&D and make sure it works and look good and to do things. So as fast as things come on the market, what I do with it is check to see, okay, yes, this will do this, but would we need to actually use this? Or could we import this into the framework and still make it work exactly as it should work? And a lot of that, is how it is. So yes, so as it stands, we will do functional testing, which is normal, API testing, accessibility, and visual validation. And as I go along, I'll see if I remember any other. But those are the 4 main things it could do straight out of the box. So what I want to do is, let me share my screen with you.
Yeah, please. We'd love to see it. Well, what IDE is this?
Oh, IntelliJ.
And this is IntelliJ, and you're using JavaScript, IntelliJ for JavaScript.
Oh yeah, you see,
that's awesome.
Again, so I can even throw something in here. IntelliJ, funny enough, everyone you see IntelliJ, it was all about Java, and then IntelliJ started to break things down. That WebStorm, they have all these weird and wonderful things. But IntelliJ itself does it all. So I could actually open a project in Flutter, for instance. And because it have all these plugins, it will work perfectly fine. I don't need to change I will even do Marvel in there. Marvin. Yeah, I can actually open a Marvin project right inside IntelliJ and work flawless.
That's awesome.
So that's why I use IntelliJ. For my guy, I use him.
Show us, how would someone get started with it? Like, what's the first step if they wanted to get started with Klassi-js?
All right, to get started, what I did was, and again, this is me. What I did is, all you do is you create your normal project. So we call this one the example test suite project, and you need to have your feature folder, your page object folder, your shared object folder, and your step definition folder. Right? That's it. That's all that is required. And in terms, I have a lot of stuff you see in here because this have been extended and put in on a lot of things. But based on the ground, you need your feature folder, your page object folder, your shared object, your step definition, Cucumber.js, of course, your package JSON, and your data config and your env config. Those are all that is actually required to use it. And Klassi-js itself is the dependency, as you can see here.
Okay, so all those files and folders we're adding ourselves and then installing Klassi-js as a dependency.
As the dependency. So to start, as you have your project, and I said, what we're looking at here is we have a lot of things running like the CI environment, standard versions where we could keep track of where we could version the test suite to suit the product and everything. So it's a lot of other things in here, but all you need to start out is your data config, your environment config, and I'll show that. So your package JSON is simply your package JSON. Your environment config folder, let me brighten that up so you can see it. Yep. Your environment config folder does exactly that. It holds the environment, your dev environment, your test environment, and whatever other environment you may have. Yeah, that's the data for that. Your data config file, on the other hand, let's expand that and let's bring that up. And this one, in case, holds things like your data config, like what's your project name, and like I said, there's a lot of other things in it. What the S3 bucket is named. And anything to do with emailing, like where after you've done you send your do your testing. Well, and that's the next feature of this. It's built where as soon as you run a test, it automatically generates a report for it, and you can send that to anybody listed in your mailing list. And this is of course if you're doing an accessibility report. These two here is for the ability for you to send emails either using AWS or using an SMTP host. Either one you fill out, it will just automatically build in. And then here is your, just in case, again, your S3 folder. So this will be the actual details for it. What's its name, the different regions, and the different name. And this little thing here is where you pass in, I'll set this up to pass tags inside the CI environment. So you could build reports inside the CI environment using tags. Right, so
Larry, can you show us a test and how to use this in a test?
Yeah, I'm going to show you a test. I'm going to do. So as we have is in your feature file, you see you have like a normal search test.
Okay, so you have to use Cucumber with Klassi-js.
Yeah, that's why we're using Cucumber. Yes, Cucumber. And I said that earlier on. It is built on thing, and I use Cucumber. So it's WebDriver IO with Cucumber.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it is. It's
All right. So this is a typical Cucumber scenario, right? I don't see anything Klassi-js specific here, right?
No, this is a normal,
Cool.
yeah, normal test going to search for cucumber. So what I'm going to do, what we're going to do, Nick, let me just reach, because you wouldn't see, actually you would. Where you would see the test would run, but you wouldn't actually see the browser open. So I'm going to kill this share and share a whole screen with you.
Okay.
All right. So let's go back to where we were now that I actually have the code in front of me. So like I was saying, this is, so the only thing that is required is your of course, like I say, your feature folder, what you need, your page object, your shared object, your step definition, and you need your data file, your env file, and your cucumber.js file, right? And I need to show this. Let me just do this wrong direction. Yeah, like that. Yeah. So this is so what happening is, the whole cucumber.js file, this is coming from, everything for that is set inside the framework itself in Klassi-js. So this is just utilizing it on this side and inside in your product, and that's it. So, and then you import in your package JSON. In your package JSON, you import in. Let me get a little bigger. Yeah, inside the package JSON, your only dependency is this. Right, and everything else is other bits like NYC and things. So the only thing you need is the only dependency is this, is where again Klassi-js.
Okay, awesome. And so now, how do we use it in our test?
Right. So now in the test, here we have a test, a simple test, like a search feature. We're just gonna go into one of these search engines. Let me just make this side smaller, a little smaller. So you're just going to you're going to go to DuckDuckGo. And we're going to input a search word, and from that, we're going to see some results. Yeah, and that is what it is in a sense. Now, here, when we do this is the step definition file for it. So we could scroll through. As you can see, the user arrived on the page. They input a variable, whatever search word, this will play there, and it plays. And this is where. And this is where the whole bit of WebDriver IO and everything under the hood comes into play. And this is where Klassi-js is. Klassi-js is the whole framework in the back of it. And let's grab this. Let me blow that up. So as I see, I have a function, and so the whole idea is all these is helpers. Now, helpers is, as you can see, it's not written anywhere. Helpers is one of those, is a function, is the placeholder for where all the functions are inside the framework. So there are a lot of functions in the framework, and we'll go back and we'll see that later on. There are a lot of functions inside the framework itself, that things like taking an image, comparing an image, doing a lot of other things, is where it's literally inside the framework itself, like the whole accessibility thing that is built into the framework and utilized in your tests, where it's all available to you for your utilization, right? Like so when I say take image, and let's look at that in the definition of that, right? And let me blow it up so you can see it. Now, what I'm going to show you is that the actual helper file, if you look down here, you see it comes from the node modules, Klassi-js, in the runtime folder, and it's the helpers.js file. So all that, so the whole idea with Klassi-js is I build all the functions, I build everything that needs to be done. It's just like using WebDriver IO in its raw form, where everything you need is you call WebDriver IO to get it by using driver.dot or browser.dot or something, and it just gives you the required paths and definitions and variables for it. And that is exactly how Klassi-js works. Everything is built in there, and you import it as a dependency, and then so you have it all to be utilized in there. Anything, so that if I need to do something that's required, let's say, like in this case, take an image, I build that. not inside the test framework that I use and now to run the test on google.com, or when I have a next project somewhere for, the jewelers.com, I need to go and no. I don't need to build all these things again inside, every time I try to run something there. It's all built inside the framework itself, and then it gets utilized across the board by just, and because it's globally set, so you just literally call it. And then you then utilizes it. Let's close some of these. Let's close some of these quickly. Let's close that one as well. Let's do this, and then let's open back that. Yeah. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, okay, so let me try to summarize. I think I understand, but correct me if I'm wrong. So Klassi-js is like a helper library that allows you to do different kinds of operations, like I see here, taking images, comparing images,
doing accessibility,
getting an accessibility report. So it allows you to do a bunch of like extra validations that wrap a bunch of code. Does that sound correct?
Yeah, no, not only that. It also holds everything for WebDriver IO, like here, browser.keys, right? Again, if you're looking at package.json, you see to have no reference to WebDriver IO.
Okay, so you wrapped WebDriver IO.
There you go. I make a wrapper around WebDriver IO. That's the correct term to use. I build a whole wrapper around WebDriver IO, and I throw in a lot of other stuff inside there to make your life easy.
Okay, so it's WebDriver IO plus, basically, right? You got the WebDriver IO features plus some extra stuff, like you want to do visual validations, accessibility, instead of trying to figure out how to configure the WebDriver IO config file for that. You made the choice and said, this is how you do it, and this is the method that you call to be able to do a visual validation, for example.
Yeah, and not just I made the choice. It's all the choice was already made by WebDriver IO. I just saying, here what, instead of because WebDriver IO have two ways you could use it, as you know. You have it in its standalone mode or in its test runner mode, and by default, 99% of the people use it in test runner mode, right? So they create all the web files and everything. I on the other hand, decided to use WebDriver IO, but build a whole big wrapper around it and use WebDriver IO in standalone mode. And that is where Klassi-js is. It's literally WebDriver IO in standalone with a massive wrapper around it. Like, come like everybody wrapping. WebDriver IO is a big wrapper around Selenium and Puppeteer. And I just enhance on it.
Yeah, that makes sense, Larry. All right, cool. We have an audience here. Do you want to ask anything of the audience? Do you need help supporting this project? Do you need feedback? What do you want to ask the audience to help you with?
Yeah, from the audience, I mean, this, like I said, this has been going for a while now, and it's being used heavily by Oxford University Press around the world with everybody. So what I want to do is, get the audience to use it. And the example suite as well, and I make life simple. It's out there as well. They can just literally download the example suite, do yarn install, and start writing test code. Start writing code against and use all the features are there. It even have a list of all the, like, inside the README. There are a list of, I would say about 80% of all the built-in features that you can use, like image repairs and it's all there. So if they could use it, utilize it, and give feedback on it, say, if they see a bug self, create an issue. If they tell us how, this could be done better, they could create an issue and fork the project, do your bit and send a PR across, and it would be a thing. But if you look at it on GitHub as we speak now, it's not just me alone doing it. Over the years, a couple of people have decided, this look cool, and added things to it. And of course, like I say, as the year go along, I just improve on bits and improve on it and improve on it some more. And now, before it was a whole thing, now it's a node. Now it's a as you can see, it's a node module. You just put it in yarn install or npm install, and there you go, and it's used. So that is how simple it is in term. And the commands to run, the commands to get things to run is in the package JSON. Actually, you can still see my screen, right? I create some of the stuff that you can use, like if you want to run dev, it would execute that, and that's one of the important things. If you look at it, it's executing the index.js, and that is why I say I had to actually go back and show you the framework itself. It executes the index.js from in Klassi-js, and then it does bits of thing like disable the report, so the report will just pop up on the screen after it done run, and that tags mean you can pass any tag that you have inside of your feature file to utilize. Right, so let me just pull this down on the screen here. So we have two files in Klassi-js that is very, very what's the big word for it? Important. I can't find a bigger word than important right now. That is really, really important when it in its mode of operation.
Critical, like the programming language that you choose.
Very critical for it. Right, very, very critical. Is your index.js and your world.js. And your world.js file. Now, the index.js is where I bring in all the required things, configs, path, commander, fx extra, merge, require this, chai, because we're using a certain expect inside there, comments config, and do all these things to get things to work across environments. So you're not dependent on a particular environment. And of course, all this is cucumber stuff. And then after I get all these, I make them globals. Right? So I make global assert, global expect. So that way, when you in your project and you check out Klassi-js, you could just type expect and however expect this work, and it will just work for you without you having to import chai or import fs and things like that. And I took the time to create a few, as you can see, a few delays that you may require every now and again. Yes, I am against using hardcore delays at certain times, but sometimes you do need it. So I create a few of them that you could use, and I even went so far as to globalize the given, when, then, and the before and the afters. Right? And nice. If we go back, if we just go back slightly to here, and we look inside this step definition file, you really have nothing. I'm not calling anything. I just say given, and it will just work because it getting all its nutrients from inside the framework itself. So you don't have to worry about importing when and then from Cucumber. You don't need to do all that. It's already done in the general scheme of things for you. There. Right? So I globalize a lot of things. And it's in here in the index file that we create all the different options that you can use. Disable the reports, send an email, your feature files, pass the environment, pass in a report name, and standard things like all the things, your steps, your tags, and things like that, right? And there's quite a few. And then, of course, here is where we make a lot of the things. This is where I globalize everything so that when you pull, so it works similar to like when you take WebDrive IO in its raw form, you just type in and you say $, and you get your options because it's globalized inside the system somewhere, right? And that's what it's done. It's done all through here, and that's a lot of other things. And then, like I said, the world.js is where we pass in the different drivers. Lambda tests. This is for the CI. This is for CI/CD. Lambda doing thing. So you could use browser stack, or you could use what's the other one called? Source Labs.
Come on, man.
But in this case, we're using Lambda test, so we build a Lambda test driver, and then the normal Chrome and Firefox. Now the thing is, these two drivers, Chrome and Firefox, is only so you could run the test local to you. If I wanted to use, I just use a Mac most of the times. So if I wanted to use Safari, I would have created a Safari driver and then just so you just automatically run by me just saying to run it using Safari, right? Well, for Android and iOS, I have to have those drivers because they're not native really. And stuff like that. And then so it's where you initiate everything, where you initiate the driver instance, the global timeout, what will happen like before, all the scenarios, what you want to do. Like in this case, I want to pass certain things to my CI environment and things like that. So that is where all that takes place, is inside these files. And then the other thing is with it is how I create it. So like for image compare, it does have its own, literally, I mean, it's on blow him up, expand all, and blow it up this way, right? In the image compare, we could take page images, and so it's all these things they're like, I build them like little modules where you can remove one and replace it once you don't change the name of it. If that making sense.
Yeah, it does.
Right. So like and a typical example is this one here, and I'll show you that. I think this is a typical example to use. Is I'm gonna bring that big up. See Pactum.js. I just use Pactum.js for APIs. Right now, over the years, that have been all different things. I just decided to use Pactum at the moment. I'm not good at naming things, so I call it API call. That's my cool name for it. And as you can see, what I did is it's in here. So now I could call, once I call API call, it will use Pactum. And now the thing, another one saying, I could remove, once I don't change this name ever, no matter what I use for APIs, once it stay under that API call function name, it will work. It will be completely oblivion to you, the user. And likewise, things like compare images and like I say, my mailing program, they are all independent things. Once I don't change the name, mailer.js, I could change every single thing inside here. And it will just work seamless for you. Like it will just work seamlessly for you, the end user, that calling. So once you, awesome. The way I'm doing it is I make it and keep it in a way that as things change over the years, I could bring in the new versions and thing without you, the user, having to say, oh my God, he changed it. What am I going to do with my test that I had running 2 years ago? That wouldn't happen to you because I use it and I retrofit. So I take the new, I build it out, I realize it could work, and then I take a existing test that I had before and ensure that once I change the call to the new version, that test could still work. And once that happened, I know I did a good part in making the changeover, and then I push it out, and then I push it out. So that's how I have Klassi going.
Makes sense.
And yeah, so that's how it is. And like I say, one of the things that I did with it was especially with emails, when you run tests, if you run 100 tests, it will create a lot of, it will create a lot of stuff. JSON files, I could create JSON files and XML, and then I convert the JSON to HTML. So you have a nice, pretty format to read. But because that is a big file, that is where I give you the ability, when a test done run, you can upload all that into S3 bucket and then call it back as a link in an email. So it's a lot of little features that you could use or you don't need to use at all. And the thing is, if you don't add a value to it, it will just sit there and do a humbug you in nowhere at all. You wouldn't even know it exists.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's awesome, Larry. Cool. Very cool. Yeah. Thank you so much for walking us through that. It was a great introduction to Klassi-js. Larry, where can people learn more about you?
Oh, well, where you can learn more about me? Well, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn, and I am on Twitter, and I'm on YouTube. My YouTube channel is new. When I say new, I only started like, I don't know, maybe a couple of months ago. But what I start doing is putting all the videos and talks and host, because I host talks as well and things like that. I put them all out on YouTube now. I started to put them out there. But you can give me my LinkedIn profile. I think you should have it, so you could always pop it up for them on the screen. Do you need me to share it with you?
No, I have it. I got your LinkedIn. I got your YouTube at Larry G underscore 01.
01,
And I
yeah.
got your GitHub.
Yep. So I'm a GitHub, I'm a Twitter, I'm a LinkedIn, I'm a YouTube.
Yeah, awesome. We'll add your Twitter as well. And
On
any
Twitter, go ahead.
last words you want to leave our audience with?
Yeah, I think one of the things I would like to say is for all, especially for people in automation, is something that you need to really, like we say earlier, on upskill yourself, and especially now where AI is being the whole talk of the town. You need to be able to go with the flow. Take a course. There are a lot of courses out there, especially on LinkedIn. Have Udemy have, and you can do a variety of research as well, but do it because in coming days, UI is going to take a big chunk out of test creation. You'll be able to stick UI inside your application and it will spit out, by sending one command, it will spit out a lot of, we'll call happy path tests for you. So you, the developer or QA engineer, will now just have to do the edge cases, as we would call it, the edge cases bits. And so enhance it. Don't fear it. Embrace it. Because it's very useful, and it save time. It will save time, and it could save time, a lot of time in generating things. And especially now where you have your AI bit and you can write a little algorithm that says, all right, if Nick send this value but it doesn't exist, do a loop through and see if you can find anything that resembles that and use it instead. And it could do a lot of things. So yeah. So in my part, like I say, guys, gals out there, enhance, learn, follow the likes of Nick, and we have a lot of other people out there. Tech Girl 1908, one of the good ones, to follow. Follow them and look at, and Christian Bowman, I must mention him, and you must follow that guy. He's a good guy, and follow it. Because they are the way ourselves, we taking the time to look at the new technologies coming in, doing POCs on them to ensure what we could do with it, what we can do, and then give you informed opinions on what is our thoughts, not what it could do, but what is our thoughts and our experience in using it.
Yeah, that's beautiful advice, Larry. Thank you for sharing it, and I totally 100% agree. Larry, thank you so much for joining us on the Test Automation Experience, talking to me about everything you've shared. It's been such a wonderful conversation, and have a wonderful day.
Yeah, and I could say thank you for having me as well. And it was really a pleasure in actually engaging with you directly, and we wasn't fighting.
No, there's no reason to fight. We're just two guys with stupid opinions, and it's nice to talk about them.
Yeah, it is. So it was a pleasure meeting you, and hope we could do this again sometime in the future.
Yeah, and hopefully in person in London. I would love that. Hey, and thank you so much for tuning into the Test Automation Experience. If you enjoyed the show, please don't forget to give the show a thumbs up, subscribe down below. And if you have any questions about what you saw, any comments, comment below. I respond to every single comment. And thanks so much for your time, and see you next time.